This is Radio 4. He's been called a bibliophile bother boy. He's a teetotal bicycling vegetarian. He wears yellow tweed knickerbockers. He's a book dealer by trade, and he writes an annual guide to all the second-hand and antiquarian bookshops in Britain. His name is Driff, and he's about to set out on a journey from Wimbledon to Edgware in Driff's Guide to the Northern Line.
The greatest work of fiction you'll ever see in bookshops is the sign on the door which says that the opening hours are 10 to 5. This is only meant as an intention. Nobody is meant to take it seriously. Nobody would expect you to be actually standing there at 10 o'clock. And indeed, if you do stand there at 10 o'clock, they will be very upset that you have got in the way of what they consider the important business of the day, which is having a cup of coffee. It's 9:20 and we're in Wimbledon attempting to get into the niche bookshop, which officially opens at 10:30. But because the owner is so polite, you stand a good chance of getting in early. Most book dealers loathe charity shops, and especially charity bookshops, but I'm particularly keen on them because they quite often have the books that other dealers reject. Like, most dealers are not at all keen on hands you in, but I am actually looking for one at the moment. This isn't the one I'm looking for. Mind you, the prices tend to be more expensive, but in truth, I don't actually mind this because it means that the stock stays there longer. So that if I'd been to a place about 2 months ago, I can usually remember that the book is still on the shelves after somebody has asked me for it. This shop used to be called Niche, and I notice now that it has no name at all, and it's just the National Schizophrenia bookshop.
Well, anyhow, yes, it was called a Niche before we came in here in 81.
I mean, I've been in lots of charity shops, and it always just seems to me that they're secret assertion training courses is what they actually are. They're not really charity shops at all. But and quite often when I take books up to the counter, they sort of say, "Only 40 pence. Why are you buying that book?" I don't know. I just wanted to buy a book, but I've never had that happen to me here.
Yeah, well, our policy has always been not only to sell books, but also to establish friendly contact with the public, because we depends on the public. It's not a very popular charity, that one that we, National Schizophrenia.
It's popular with me.
No, I know, but many, but nonetheless, while you speak, it's not well publicised. It hasn't got the same.
It hasn't got the Elan of Oxfam.
No, you see, that thing.
No.
You see, this is the point.
Do you get upset with dealers buying books from you extremely cheaply and then going off and selling them for what large sums of money? I mean, I bought a book in here. I think I bought it for about £4, and I sold it for 160. Does that upset you?
No, it doesn't upset us. Well, if it is gone book, you see, and we are Mr. We haven't got much space. And if you get a fair price, £5, £10 and so on, and if it is a good luck to him...
Well, that's not an attitude that you encounter very often in charity shops, in my experience. They get very, very upset indeed. Anyway, can I have a book called The Tiger, The Symbol of Freedom?
It's £3.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm hoping to become a tiger.
Thank you so much.
Au revoir, monsieur.
Thank you. You're always welcome. Hope to see you again.
Can I have a 340 travel card for today, please? Merci beaucoup. It's my belief that you can only concentrate for about 20 minutes at a time on any particular subject, and actually having the bookshop separated helps, and this is why the Northern Line is the most conducive to book collectors. Not only does it go underground for 18 miles, and if you look carefully you'll see that most people on the Northern Line actually are reading books, but it is the actual gaps between the shops that help you to concentrate once you go in. This is why places like Hay and Wye are a dreadful mistake. The shops are all congregated together and there's nothing else to do. Whereas if you go on the shops on the Northern Line, you have to go into the shop, come out, go on the train, then into the shop, and it actually makes it more interesting. And what has now happened is that the Charing Cross Road has extended from Wimbledon to Edgware. It no longer is just the Charing Cross Road, in the same way Savile Row is no longer just Savile Row. So you have the entire length of the place. People have had to go out and find cheaper rents because the places in the West End have become so expensive. Hi, how you doing?
In flagrante delicto.
Pardon?
Trying to clean up this.
Oh, I see, you're trying to tidy up the place. Well, I always feel it's a mistake trying to tidy up bookshops. I'm in favour of chaos.
Yeah, oh good.
This noble emporium is run by Doug Jeffers. I'm very interested in this thing about the name of the shop. I suggested to you before that this one should be called the Balham Station Bookshop, and you
Yes.
call it My Back Pages.
Yes.
I don't understand why it's called My Back Pages.
Well, it's a Dylan song, isn't it? And it's the birds and so forth. And I'm an aging hippie, and that's the connection of that.
I don't know what
and
I was
also,
doing.
the other thing was I used to sell records as well. So I think for record conoscenti would have recognised that.
One of the things about your shops is that they are extremely easy to spot. You have chosen very good locations, which I'm very much in favour of.
Yeah.
You've chosen South London, which is where they think literature is something you drop in the street. You've always chosen them next to stations, and this has obviously proved quite a profitable policy insofar as you're the only second-hand book dealer I know who has 4 shops.
Well, I always liken my policy to British foreign policy in the 19th century. They say that the British Empire was gathered together in a fit of absent-mindedness. That's one of the great theories, and that's really what's happened with me. There was no plan. I've very successfully advertised 4 books.
Yeah.
I get lots and lots of them in.
And you just had
I get more than my house can fill. My wife threatens divorce. We open a new shop.
I see. My other theory is that less than 20% of the second-hand book dealers in Britain actually make a sensible living.
I'm not telling you anything about that.
Well, no, but I mean, if you've got 4 shops, you can't be doing too badly. And you are very, very successful at getting people into the shops. And this can only be sort of good news, because you know
Well,
the
we
bad
pay
news is that less than 4% of the population ever go in bookshops.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's why I say the really bad news, that W.H. Smith & Son is counted as a bookshop.
Because I was
Strangely enough,
useless. And
your shops don't resemble any other second-hand bookshops I've seen in Britain, but they do vaguely resemble some of the shops in Belfast. There is a shop in the Ormo Road, I think
Yeah,
it is.
Ormo Road,
It's-
yeah. I don't know,
and
I'm
it
confused.
has this same sort of, not jumbled look, but sort of not too neat look about it.
Well, that's,
which-
well, it's just a reflection of my personality, I'm afraid.
yeah, but
I'm
is
all
that
over the
sort of
place.
typical, do you think, of Belfast? Because it doesn't happen in the rest of Northern
Well,
Ireland.
you know what the Irish are like. Bernard Bain said something about the Irish being stupid, short, ugly, blah, 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 blah. And he said, this is of course untrue, because some of them are quite tall. And you know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but our talent is in our disorder, I think.
I am now in the Charing Cross Road, which in the public mind is synonymous with the second-hand book trade. The thing is, it's extremely noisy in the Charing Cross Road, and one of the things I feel that they should do is to pedestrianise the entire length. There are more than enough tube stations to keep everybody happy. One of the things that happens because of the traffic is that people don't actually look in the windows of the shop. They're so keen to get inside and to get away from the traffic that they miss the windows where all the bargains are. Indeed, one day I was standing outside of Hordey's and another book dealer came up to me and asked me to find him a book on embalming. And I turned round and kept trying to sort of walk him away from the window of this shop because actually they had the book in the window that he wanted. I wanted to push him away so he didn't get to know that the book was in the window, and I bought it from Hordey's for something like £75 and I sold it to him for £250. And this is standard. I find that you're more likely to get a bargain in the window than you are anywhere else in the Charing Cross Road. I only know the manager here as Gino. Do you actually have a second name?
Yes, my surname is Della Ragione, Gino Della Ragione.
It sounds like a poem. One of the reasons I've always been attracted to Pordy's is because the manager is the only bookshop owner in the world I know who's a professional footballer in Italy.
No, I'm not a professional footballer.
Used to be a professional footballer.
Not exactly. I used to play in Italy football, and football is my hobby.
Not professional.
Not professionally.
Well, I'm never coming in here again. Oh, I only came in here because I thought you were a professional footballer. I didn't realise that. Usually, I don't like shops that sell what I call remainder books, but yours is somehow very, very different to any other shop that I've been to. We've just been in one called My Back Pages, where they have the remainder books mixed up with the second-hand and the antiquarian.
When you say remainders, what exactly means? Remainders are books out of print.
Well, they're books out of print, but the dividing line here is that they were previously owned by a publisher. My definition of a second-hand book is that it had to be previously owned by a punter.
Right.
The other thing is, this is a dreadfully neat shop, and I personally am in favour of dreadfully untidy shops. And I think you sell more books in an untidy shop than
I
in a
don't
neat
know.
shop.
Let's go back again to me being Italian. I
You think Italians are all neat and tidy?
Not necessarily, but we like to keep the shop in a kind of... I mean, I don't think I keep the shop terribly neat and tidy. I mean, I do like dance too.
It's certainly neater and tidy than any other shop.
It has some character in any case. But I like to have a shop which I think people should feel comfortable in.
Do you read books very much?
Yes.
Because, you know, the dealer I most admired, he was an Italian in St Andrews, and he could neither read nor write. And he
Really?
ran a successful shop there.
In St Andrews, in Scotland?
In St Andrews, in Scotland, yes. I mean, all the other dealers used to love him because he only had 3 prices. He had £1, £2 and £5. So they used to, and he made fortunes.
I think I read, I like reading.
Yeah?
I read literature, English literature, Italian literature, history.
Really? Can't stand any of that stuff. How much is the William the Tramp you got in the... Is it William the Tramp? You got in the window?
About £40, I think.
No, it's more than I can afford. Next!
Unlike many book dealers, I do not read my books, or I only look through them, or when I'm cataloguing them, I will read the blurb on the dust strap. What I'm interested in mainly are the people who come to buy the books, because I love people coming. I'm living here on my own. I'm 80. I'm a lonely old woman with 3 cats.
I find this, I mean, I spend a lot of time in bookshops, and I find it very, very rare that I meet dealers such as yourself, Camille Wolfe, who are enthusiastic about books. But what I'm extremely puzzled by is the choice of subject of books that you are interested in, that is, books on murder. There can't be a place in Britain or the world where there can be so many books on murder, multiple murder, mass murder, as there are in this room. Do you ever wonder why it is the customers are buying these books?
Do you not never wonder why people read all the murders in newspapers? It is a thing that interests everybody.
But, like, your sort of story, almost out Agatha's Christie, it's like a plot from some sort of cheap detective novel. I find it extremely difficult to believe that you chose these books to get people coming to your house.
As I explained early on, I didn't choose these books.
They chose you?
They chose me. I happened to have some of these books, and a man came here and wanted to buy them and then put me in his book.
The Murderer's Who's Who, and
Yes.
that really started you off.
Yes, well, what happened was I originally dealt in everything, and then I liked detective fiction and went in for detective fiction, and then the two overlapped, the true murders and the detective fiction. And this Joe Gort, who was writing a book on the murders of the last 120 years, used to come and buy books from me, and then he very kindly put me in the back of his book as one of 7 specialists in the world. And because I like doing what's easy, I then became a dealer in true crime. Not because the subject particularly fascinated me. I mean, it has fascinated me, but so did detective fiction.
I'm sorry, but I find it hard to believe that how it is that you're not upset by these
I'm
things.
very upset, and I am one who is against capital punishment. I just am upset by the books. I'm upset when I read about horrible things. I can't read books on punishment, put it that way.
Yeah,
I can't
all
read
right.
books
Well,
on torture.
that's a separate sort of issue.
Torture
here.
I can't cope with, but murder I can cope with. There are certain what I call weirdies who will write to me and say, have you got books about post-mortems and things like that? Well, I cross them off. But a real domestic murder story, I think, is fascinating. I believe that the world would be dreary if there was no crime. I can't imagine a world without crime. Can you? Can you imagine heaven?
I certainly think a world without crime wouldn't be heaven. but
You wouldn't notice the good things without the crime. You have to have the contrast. And it'll always be a fight. Unfortunately, sometimes crime wins, as in Hitler's time, but you always have to keep on fighting or there'll be another Hitler.
Do you ever sort of wish that you could have investigated murders?
No, I would like to go to the Old Bailey and witness a murder trial, and possibly I will, because my grandson and his wife are both barristers, and so maybe they'll take me. And also I have a very good friend who's a psychiatrist, and he said next time there's a murder case, he'll take me. And that I would be interested in.
So you would prefer a forensic psychiatry case rather than just a brutal killing, as it were?
Yes, I mean, I don't want just, yes, I want an interesting case.
So, say, I mean, if you could have turned up at the case of the Yorkshire Ripper, that would have interested you more than a taxi driver being murdered in the street?
Yes, because I used to have a man who used to phone me with a Yorkshire accent, and one of my granddaughters were living was certain it was the Yorkshire Ripper.
It's interesting how many second-hand book dealers were once prominent in left-wing politics. Mr. Steve King, outside Who's Shop, Bootle and King in Sadler's Wells, I am currently standing, used to be the leader of Haringey Council. Mr. Louis Bondy, he used to be on the
Pancras
GLC.
Council.
Yes,
Great man.
And Mr. Tom Jackson, I think he was described as left-wing. I realise you might not quite describe him as being left-wing, but I feel
I wouldn't. But he was
quite
a
often,
union leader.
Yes, and you quite often see people like Michael Foote and Healy, and I've seen Mr. Livingston in second-hand bookshops, whereas I very, very seldom see any right-wing people in bookshops.
That's probably because, obviously, to be on the left, you have to be more intelligent. I mean, it stands to reason.
I knew I didn't understand.
To be a socialist, you're more widely read, you're more understanding. The whole business, really. Yeah, it's straightforward.
But why is it then that left-wing people are very attracted to such a capitalist enterprise as book dealing, insofar as all you have to know as a book dealer is to buy the book for 1x and sell it for 3x?
I don't think you're comparing like with like. I mean, left-wing people are attracted to books.
Yes.
Because of reasons I've explained already. They're not necessarily attracted to book selling as a capitalist enterprise. Some people on the left might go in for selling books for a reason, as we did.
You couldn't find
anything else to do. You know, having been sort of right-wing cooed, as it were, then we thought we'd got to try something to earn a living somehow.
The other thing is my belief that left-wing book dealers, when they go off on what we capitalist book dealers call buying books, we go on buying trips, that left-wing book dealers, they always go on holiday. And I tell you, I have never seen the pair of you together other than to be here arranging holidays. I mean, I had one book dealer, he told me he went to Hawaii on a buying trip. Like, you lot sort of told me you went on holiday to Todmorden, I believe it was.
Quite. I mean, Hawaii, Todmorden, I mean, you can see. But we combine holiday with book buying.
Lady wishes
Someone's
to
come to buy one, excuse me. Hello. Yeah.
I just wondered if you got the Metropolitan Book of Art, the catalogue.
Not as yet, but could be.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Didn't bring us much luck there, did you? Where were we?
I don't know. Where would you like to be?
But I'd like you to pick that £20 book up you just knocked off the shelf, actually, if that's all right.
I have no respect for price, you know this.
No, but it's my living, I'm afraid.
What about, I'm not claiming vast experience, but in my experience, sort of left-wing book dealers divide into two groups. The affable kind who always offer me a cup of coffee, and the other kind who always show me the door. Now, why is it that they seem to be these two extremes in sort of left-wing book dealers?
Might have something to do with your own personal politics, which are, as you admit yourself in your books, somewhere to the right of Adolf Hitler.
No, to the right of Genghis Khan.
I've just read the 1985-86 edition. I've been doing my research as well.
I've improved since then.
And you definitely referred to Adolf Hitler. Now, some people have got no sense of humour, unfortunately, even on the left, which differentiates them from those of us with a sense of humour on the left, which is why you always get a cup of coffee in here, despite your wretched politics.
I understand. Can I see your department on Ethel Carney Holdsworth?
What, the socialist women's writer, earlier part of the century?
Yes.
We haven't got any, I'm afraid.
As
Very,
usual.
she's very hard to come by. Next. Coffee?
Thank you. This one, what happened about this one was that, I was looking for the other one. What was it called? Hell is a very, very small place. I found the paperback of it, but what I did is somebody told me they had the paperback, but they would only swap it for the one, the Battle of BM Few, which I now have to swap against him, and I have now sold the paperback already, and I have to give him this one. The reason I've come to Peter de Lot's in North London is to pick up these two books that I had rung him earlier for. Yeah, the first edition of it I'm looking for.
And that's General Richardson's book.
I was very
Flashback.
surprised that you didn't actually have the hardback of the Bernard Ford one. In my experience, you have most of the military books that I'm looking for.
Well, I had a copy not long ago, so that's all booksellers say.
Yeah, I know, but I need copies now, and a sort of thing.
I should do my best.
Would I be right in thinking that you do have the largest stock?
I think, Driff, I probably do. I think I probably have the largest stock of books on military history in Britain, and as good a stock as most people anywhere.
Presumably you must have started in a much smaller way. You just had 400 or 500 books.
I have my collection.
How many do you have
four,
now?
400 or 500. I've probably got 10,000 books. My stock is strongest, really, on World War I and World War II, all areas of military, aviation and naval history. Most of my customers are academics. I mean, on things such as World War II, very few people are interested in sensational accounts of concentration camps.
So you think that they're just doing it mainly from an academic point of view?
I think most of them are, yes.
The people
Not
who
from a sensationalist
ask
point of
me
view.
for books about military history, it tends to be that they're associated with this thing in some way. The guy who's asked me for the Bernard Fall book, he's asked me, because he was in Vietnam at that time and he knew Bernard Fall. So that doesn't happen to you very much.
Oh, it does. I have people phone me who say my father was in a certain regiment or my grandfather, and at a particular place. If you have a book, and occasionally I do, and I look into the index or the list of wounded people, and if I can identify his relative in there, then it's a certainty that he'll want to buy it. People say, I must have this and show it to my children, and it becomes in a family piece.
But how does that affect the sort of bibliography that you're doing about the Boer War, written by Hackett? I mean, insofar as there can't be many people now alive who were associated with the Boer War.
No, well, that's certainly true, but I mean, there's a tremendous collecting interest. I mean, it's the last of the Victorian wars, the last of the gentlemen's wars.
And how many books are there in this?
I think we'll have 200 pages.
Presumably there must be 500, 700 books at least.
Oh, there will be considerably more than that. And 200.
And those books solely concerned with the Boer War?
Solely concerned. In the English language, from inception of the war to 1920. There is no reference book on the Boer War. There is nothing to tell you, for instance, if you were interested in the Leicester militia. Is there a book published? How big is it? How many illustrations does it have? Our book will tell you that. It'll also likely show you the original decorated cover of the book in a colour image. And though for people who want to know exactly about the books, they can identify them and see them.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And I'm also looking for a book about Wittgenstein called The Danger of Words by Maurice O'Connor Drury, The Philosophy of Psychology. You seen that?
No, I haven't seen that one, no.
Neither have I. Neither has anybody else. I've talked to loads of people on philosophy and they haven't seen it either. We're in the 2J's bookshop in Edgware, which is at the top of the Northern Line. And not only is it geographically at the top of the Northern Line, it is the best bookshop on the Northern Line. It is the best bookshop in London. It is the best bookshop in Britain. And it's my vague suspicion that it must also be the best general second-hand bookshop in the world. And I'd like to know how you, Mr. Matthews, actually achieved this.
To put it simply, seeing how a new bookshop works, you run it on the same principle, and that is you stock something for everybody at a reasonable price. And as I say, we cater for Tiny Tot with the Ladybird book up to the student with his classics and historical study books.
So since you've opened, have you seen sort of many changes in the types of customers that come in for the books?
I believe we're getting different customers who don't enter new bookshops because of lack of variety. And in publishing as well, where there's been so many takeovers the past 5-10 years, a lot of what they call the backlist has gone, and your storytellers have just been allowed to go out of print. And the customer is looking for a good storyteller, say Rider Haggard, Warwick Deeping, still popular today. It's just not obtainable at the new booksellers. And the public libraries, same thing applies. If it's not on computer, nothing is known about the author or the title. And you get people come down here, books which were in print 20 years ago are out of print now, and you can say, oh yes, we've got a copy, we'll try and obtain a copy for you.
This is one of the reasons I'm always ringing you up and asking for books, is that you're one of the few book dealers I know who actually knows such a wide range of books.
Yes.
To go back to the other thing is, like, my opinion is that this is the best second-hand bookshop in Great Britain. I don't know if you go in sort of other second-hand bookshops. It's not just that you do it so well, it's because a lot of the others do it so badly. They don't open on time, they don't sort of make any effort to learn about the books, and they don't make any effort to be helpful to the customers. Whereas in this shop, you know about all the books and you know about these things.
You've got to treat it as a business. You can't afford to sort of sit back and in the corner like it used to be, read a book, and the book's on the shelf for 2, 3 years or 5 years. Even in Charing Cross Road it used to be like that. You go out there every time, you see sets of the classics, Balzac, etc., all there year after year. But today you've got to keep it moving with increased costs every year.
Don't got any more Giles, any?
No, only recent ones, only the 30s onwards. Yeah, no, it's, sorry. There's 2 for you up there. Hackler's Handbook.
Me?
Thrive on Stress.
No, definitely not. I'll have the Haggler's Handbook. Yeah, we'll have that. Occasionally, I come across what I call Samuel Beckett specials, a bookshop covered in the kind of dust that theatre designers would give their right arms for, and which, when you look at the books, makes you wonder, why am I here? Why am I book collecting? What is the purpose of these books? Who would want to buy them? Seldom is there any conversation in these places. Instead, there is a stream of words that are not meant to make any sense. And when you leave, it is in silence.
Driff's Guide to the Northern Line was presented by Driff Field and produced from Bristol by Jill Marshall. Next week at the same time, an underground journey of a different kind, as the director of the Science Museum, Dr. Neil Cossens, goes down your drain, exploring London's sewers.